story that we're watching for you. Of course, developments out of Nkandla, all indications being that the former president, Jacob Zuma, is set to be arrested at least before midnight tonight. That deadline is quickly approaching, and it follows last week's Constitutional Court ruling, jailing the former statesman to 15 months in jail. This is for contempt in his state capture matter. Well, let's get some political analysis now. Sanusha Naidu joins us, Dirk Kotza and Raboni Tau. Good evening to all of you, and thanks for your time. I suppose whichever way you look at it, this moment is significant for multiple reasons. Professor Kotza, let me begin with you and perhaps reflect with us on why it is such a significant moment in your eyes.
Well, I think it's significant because it takes us back to the original judgment by the Constitutional Court. We've heard now the first application by President Zuma yesterday. Next Monday will be another one. But those are in a sense now overtaken by the events of what most possibly will happen tonight, which means that it goes back to the original situation. And I think it's important because, there are many people who believe that there has been a sort of a deviation from attention, a softening of the position, or even some concessions that's been made after the judgment was delivered by the Constitutional Court. So it will reinstate the authority of the Constitutional Court as the uppermost judicial authority in South Africa. I would say that's the first point. The message about that many people refer to about the significance of the judgment, I think, will be reaffirmed also by this event, about the rule of law, by the fact that no one is above the law, as well as the message to, I would say, a broader audience of persons who will be implicated or are implicated in charges of corruption and other serious crimes, who will understand that not even President Zuma is exonerated from actions like this.
Sanusha, let me bring you in here. Same question, your own reflections.
Good evening, Kathy, and to the viewers and my colleagues. I think it's significant because this moment, as you rightly point out, is critical for so many reasons. One, it tests the apex court, its decision, to its mandate and the order that now needs to be executed by the police. It also tests the separation of powers between the three branches of government. It also brings into context, the relationship between the political and the legal dynamics of our body politic and our state. And more importantly, it raises questions around where we are in a democracy and this whole notion of the rule of law and the legalese issues that underpin this, and the interpretation of our statutes and the interpretation of what we've been seeing, interestingly in terms of the different interpretations of whether this needs to be carried out and whether it can be carried out. And I think what was also very unprecedented in all of this was the letter that the minister, the police minister, and the national commissioner had written to the Constitutional Court, asking them to give some guidance around where this goes this evening. Up until now, we haven't heard, and I may be corrected, but we haven't heard whether there has been a response. And I think linked to that is just the whole situation that at the center of the storm as well is the Zondo Commission. And right now, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo is the acting Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court. Does he then respond to that letter? I think that's why it makes it such a significant moment, but also it's unprecedented in where we are in terms of where we were in '94 and where we are now.
Raboni, your view?
Thanks, Kathy. I think just to agree with Sanusha, what she's saying, on Friday, it was communicated that the Deputy Chief Justice was going back to the ConCourt as the acting Chief Justice, which was very interesting, and the matter now being put to him, and how does he deal with this? Because in the first place, he's the one that asked the Constitutional Court, to deal with the matter. He took the case there, so it's very interesting. But also, since the dawn of our democracy, this is a very trying era or trying time in the country where a former head of state has been sentenced to prison. I think most of us have never thought that we'll see this day happening in the Republic of South Africa right now.
Professor Professor Kotze, and that has been one of the things that has been highlighted, that we're not dealing with just any ordinary citizen. We're dealing with an individual who was the #1 citizen in this country for 2 terms in his presidency. And when we read the Constitutional Court judgment, it is the very principles which he took an oath to abide by that the Constitutional Court says he trampled on and disrespected in not obeying its order and going before the Constitutional Court.
Yes, President Zuma is in a unique situation. He's one of only a few persons that has been in the top position, the most important political or constitutional position in South Africa. And therefore he has a special responsibility. He's not like one of us, in the sense that he is a role model. He's a person who has played that role as the head of state as well as the head of government of South Africa. And in that respect, whether he's still in office or whether it's a retired head of state or president, it doesn't really make a difference, because that is a title that he is actually supposed to carry for the rest of his life. And with that goes the responsibility of saying that, in a sense, he continues to be representative, a personification almost, of important aspects of the Constitution. So, though we are all equal before the law, when it comes to the symbolism of this, I think he has a special role to play. And I think this was why there were references in these judgments about the fact that he has an influence over persons in society that you and I maybe have less. And that is the responsibility which I think should not make him more or more prone to judgments by courts, but it is something which carries a weight in terms of the public responsibility that he must carry.
Sanusha, when we speak to those that have been comrades of the former president, this moment carries with it a lot of perhaps, the word to use for it is sadness, because they look at the kind of life that the former president has lived, his contribution to this country's liberation struggle. Reflect on that for me, that, one of the things that we've heard said is that this is not the way that somebody like him, that this is not the way their legacy should have unfolded.
Absolutely, Kathy. I think no one, and I think no leader wants to go and have this kind of shadow and this kind of legacy being unraveled in the way that it has. It casts a serious aspersion on him. It creates a whole lot of negative connotations. It's just a bad cloud. And to go out in this way, or what we've seen in the last couple of days and the reaction, it just doesn't bode well for him. I think you find yourself caught between these two spaces. People who feel that he's an elder in the party, he should be respected. You saw that tone come out in the ANC-NEC address yesterday by Jesse Duarte, and you also kind of get the impression that on the other side of the spectrum, there's the sense that this is an individual who has held two terms in office. He's taken the oath of the office of the presidency. He should know what that means, and there should be a decorum around this. And I think at the end of the day, for me, what's really sad about this whole situation is that we are being driven by these personalities, and how these personalities are trying to shape where we are going as a South African, as a democratic country, and we're challenging the Constitution, the very Constitution that represented all those struggles, all those sacrifices that people made in the liberation struggle itself. And I think at the end of the day, that's the unprecedented nature of where we find ourselves this evening. Is the Constitution is actually being under the rule of law, under the microscope of everything. And I think we never anticipated we'd get to this point, but we're here nevertheless.
Reboni, we've also heard about how this moment needs to be handled with a particular level of care, because there's so many other moving parts that are connected to this developing story. Speak to me about that. And we heard, from the police tonight that there were conversations about needing to avoid embarrassment for the former president when he is taken in.
Well, as you have said correctly, Kate, this is a former head of state. He can't be treated like any other citizen. Yes, he will be arrested today, as it has been indicated, as we've been informed the whole day. But is, his dignity and so forth at the end of the day, it is very important, in spite of everything that has happened over the past few days, and him not wanting to go to the Zondo Commission because of having his own reservations regarding the Deputy Chief Justice, asking him to recuse himself at this present moment. But, at the end of the day, as an elder, and as Sunisha said, this is, as the NC has also indicated, this is an elder, in spite of everything that has happened, even during his presidency as the President of the Republic.